In a world of movie references flying over his head, one man will finally watch them. This is the Matt and Blonde Show movie review.
This week's movie is the 1999 sci-fi comedy Galaxy Quest, in which a TV space crew becomes a real space crew when an alien race confuses them as authentic and recruits them into their fight with an intergalactic supervillain. I also watched the Drumhead episode of Star Trek The Next Generation at Blonde's request beforehand for some additional contextual understanding from our movie picker Amanda. Unironically, this is the best Star Trek movie ever made. The script is tight, the actors are so much fun, and hats off to the late Alan Rickman for his absolutely hilarious and wonderful performance. It hits a perfect note on the nature of geek culture and the woes of aging stars. One of my absolute favorites, as always. Your review and your rating.
Okay, so I made Matt watch an episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, although I am aware that this is more closely based on the original series. I just wanted him to watch an episode of Star Trek. I was never going to get an opportunity like this again. So I made him watch an irrelevant episode of Star Trek The Next Generation just because, you know, I thought he would like it. And he didn't. We'll talk about that in a moment.
I wouldn't say that I hated it, but I can tell you my thoughts.
But what would have been better is if I had you watch the documentary called Trekkies, but you weren't going to watch two movies.
It'd be a big ask, yeah.
Yeah, you understand Star Trek culture and like the fandom surrounding it, but I have a feeling that you hated this movie. I haven't read your review, but this movie is just so near and dear to my heart. I love it, and it's not just because it captures Trekkie culture so perfectly, but it's because it's a film within a film, maybe even within a film. You get all of this drama of the aging actors and their addictions and personality issues and everything and their depressing lives. And it's paired with this great redemption story. And then it's all kind of contained within the world of Star Trek, kind of, which in fact turns out to be real. So it's an uplifting story. The nerds are the heroes. And then these actors, they're not the fading losers that they seem to be. They're heroic in the eyes of the aliens. And then the aliens don't have this experience of being fully disappointed that what they believed is not a true reality. So it's like the ultimate happy ending, right? I just love this movie. It's super fun because I love Star Trek so much. And 4 out of 5. That's what I get.
4 out of 5. What did you knock it for?
No, 4 out of 5 is an excellent review.
But you have to see a flaw. What's the flaw?
In terms of like the best films, the movies that I want to give 5s are like the best films ever made.
Okay, so maybe we have some overlap because I don't hate this movie. In fact, it's one of those movies I think it'd be very hard to hate.
Good.
But I don't see a lot of depth to it. Part of that is because I'm not keen on the Star Trek culture that it is somewhat a parody of. The other part of it is I just don't think that there's actually a lot of philosophical or metaphorical depth to it, period, even if you do understand that culture. But that doesn't mean that I think it's bad.
Okay.
The things I liked, it actually, I was really impressed with its effects. Both digital and practical. And they meshed pretty well. And especially for this late 90s era, you make the rock monster and the child monsters digitally. And they actually looked pretty believable and worked pretty well with the, what was the pig monster? And then you had the like octopus thermians. And those were practical effects. They made them. That all worked really well. But actually the character Saris as a costume was really incredible. And the way they were able to get his face to have expressions and movement. Apparently this was technology and mechanics that Stan Winston had been working on since the abomination that was the Star Wars holiday special in 1978. That was a total piece of crap, but he really worked on, he really nailed it by 20 years later and had something really excellent looking in this particular movie. So good for him. That was really cool. The only flaw in the effects that I thought was funny, And I'll credit to my wife for noticing this because she's really into effects and things. But she just happened to see this when Tim Allen, Nesmith, when he's fighting the pig monster on the sand planet. There's a moment where you can see the puppeteer's hand in the top right corner of the frame operating the pig monster.
That's endearing.
And it's pretty obvious. It's only on there for a frame or two, but it's a big full fist in the frame. And to be fair to the effects crew, that's probably more of an editing mistake than an effects mistake. So
yeah,
I'm kind of shocked that somebody who's a professional Hollywood editor or a team wouldn't pick up on that mistake. The movie. Did you have more to say?
Wait. Let's talk about the episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, you want to do that before I continue? Yeah. So, well, do you want to explain why you picked it, or do you want me to?
Sure. I picked the episode "The Drumhead" for Matt to watch. I thought it would be an excellent segue for you specifically into Star Trek: The Next Generation because it has heady philosophical themes. It's about a woman ruining everything, and then there's a great speech about individual thought and freedom of speech by Picard at the end.
Yeah. So the whole premise is that there's some kind of perceived attack on the ship, and it's believed that there's some kind of rat or someone's behind it. This particular member of the crew gets accused, and there's a big witch hunt, and you bring in this admiral chick to lead the witch hunt, and she throws out the concepts of due process and the presumption of innocence. And Picard is kind of the giving all the is everybody gone crazy around here kind of speeches. Am I the only sane one left? We have to stand on principle. And of course, the themes of the episode I resonate with me and are important to me. And I thought it was decently well written. So it's not a hatred for it. It's just Star Trek is so stiff and corny to me. And people are so serious on the show in a way that just seems hilarious to me. Like every Klingon just looks ridiculous, but they're so angry and serious all the time.
You get over it eventually.
Maybe I'm just not acclimated to it, but it's not the writing or the themes. I appreciated that. It's just presentationally, it just does not work for me.
It was early 90s.
I guess. But yeah, I neither hated nor enjoyed. As a work of writing, it was fine. As a work of acting and presentation, not for me. Which is, I don't know. It's at some level how I feel about this movie. Not perfectly so. The movie's also Galaxy Quest is also pretty funny. It has its moments of pretty good laughs. The minors not minors line was very good.
Yeah.
You have that character Quan. He has the dry humor all the time. Like, oh, that seems to be a little rough there. I'll have my crew put some WD-40 on it after they eject the bad guys. Sigourney Weaver's exposure continuing to get more and more aggressive as the situation gets more and more dire. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
By the way, isn't she like 50 when this movie was made?
Something like that.
She's old, and good for her.
Keeping it tight.
She pulled it off, I would say.
Nice pair on her. She talks about that a lot too.
I wouldn't say that I was like laughing hysterically the whole time, but it was a funny movie and it was enjoyable. There were the child aliens trying to get onto the ship as they escape reminded my wife specifically of the escape from the Kabul airport. It was like, man, they saw it ahead of time. They really influenced Joe Biden's withdrawal plan. So a movie ahead of its time as far as its influence on Afghan culture. Now, as far as what I don't appreciate or what I didn't like about this movie, some of it's kind of just my subjective taste, my subjective interest, rather than sort of serious flaws of the movie. I just don't care about the satire or parody of Star Trek to the extent that I don't care about that culture, that setting. It just doesn't resonate with me. And a real Trekkie is bound to enjoy this movie in ways that I just am not. It doesn't mean that it's a crap movie. It just means it's not really one that's for me. I thought Guy's character was really annoying. He played the role of like the hysterical chick, but he's a guy, and that just made it even more annoying. I was not a fan. Just delete him, and the movie would be better. And as I mentioned, I just think that there's some depth lacking to it. I could try to extract some meaning out of it. As you mentioned, maybe I'm supposed to believe that for the Thermians, maybe there's value and moral support in believing in something, even if it's not true. Maybe that gets you over the end, gets you to the finish line in a difficult struggle. Maybe there's something like that. I just don't think this movie's supposed to be that deep. I think it's supposed to be just kind of a fun take on a culture that people love. And I agree that it's fun. I just don't really have the enjoyment of the culture. And so for me, did I enjoy watching it? Yeah, sure. I wasn't sitting there angry, hating it. It's a perfectly fine movie. But it's not one that I'm going to watch again or I'm going to think about later. So it's a respectable 3 wiki rating for me.
Okay, I'll allow it.
I suspect that people are going to, the early vote is going to be more in appreciation than I give it. And I am correct. A sizable majority, over 70% of the early response giving it 4 and 5. So people do love this movie. Very little hate for it. Next week, I think this was on your original list way back when. 12 Angry Men, was it not?
It was not.
Maybe. Why did I think that? I don't know. Have you seen it before?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay. So this will be new to both of us. Of course, I don't know much about it. I just know it's a movie from the 50s that took place in one room, which is the jury deliberation room in a murder trial.
Yeah.
So it might be something I'll enjoy. And then after that, the nominees are Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, Pitch Black, Apollo 13, True Grit, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or, of course, you can reject the list and vote for a randomly selected top-rated movie instead. As a reminder, if you'd like to read my movie reviews, comment on how wrong I am, submit your own rating, vote for the next movie, or sign up for the chance to be the movie nominator for the month, the one and only place to do it is in my weekly movie review column linked in the description and on the homepage of the website. That is mattchristiansenmedia.com. And that'll do it on a stream for the evening. Let's check in with the chat. We'll call